My name's Brandon. I guess I didn't really introduce myself in the first video. This is, my channel's East Kentucky Bigfoot Researcher. Try to make that as straightforward as possible. I really don't do clickbait. I don't really like people that just kind of, I don't know, lie to you to get you to click on their video or whatever. And I promise eventually these are going to be more in a my office setting. It's like my first two videos, kind of shot on the same day. Took my hat off, so I got terrible hat hair, but whatever. It's going to be that way. Yeah, so I wanted to talk to you guys about something that's kind of pressed on my mind a little bit with, I don't know, more of a get to know me kind of thing. So I was going to go through like a couple of the shows that to me got me interested in cryptozoology as a kid and kind of how I felt about them. Now granted, as a young person watching these, you know, as a very young kid, probably too young sometimes, but you know, I didn't really realize this stuff was for entertainment purposes and stuff like that. And again, I made my piece about that on the first video, so whatever. But anywho, stuff that I find interesting. So number one, show that really influenced me into cryptozoology and just paranormal stuff, things of the weird, mainly Bigfoot, was a show called Animal X. Now, there's two versions of that show. One show was the original, where it was just stories and a narrator, and sometimes they would put people out in the field, but a lot of times you got just a story and a narrator. That was the very first version, like Animal X Classic is what it's known as. Love that show. Still to this day, it's like one of the shows that made me absolutely terrified to go outside as a kid, because I was like, well, I'm gonna fucking die. Didn't even realize that like all the real potential of things that could kill you, rather than like some of the really outlandish stuff that they would come up with of different folklores and stuff like that, and or just random stuff. Sometimes I just thought they would just throw a dart at a wall and see what stuck. But anywho, there's that one. Then there's Animal X with the mystery unit, where the guy and a girl would go out there. You had a narrator. I think it was. Oh, I forgot his name now. That's gonna bug me. Anywho, really good narrator. And they would do like what's pretty common nowadays, where you would send a group out. They would just, you know, go looking for stuff, and kind of, I wouldn't say pioneered that ideology, but to me it was pretty big at the time, because that you didn't have, like, I didn't have, you know, Monster Quest and all this other stuff at the time, or at least I didn't know about it. So that show had like several episodes. Both shows had quite a few episodes on like Bigfoot or Sasquatch and stuff, and absolutely loved storytelling and stuff, especially the other stuff, not just Sasquatch. I love stuff on El Chupacabra. I love stuff on, I was big into the Loch Ness Monster once upon a time. UFOs, cattle mutilations, just random stuff that would happen that nobody could explain. Very interesting stuff. On a side note, look up a video if you want to. There's a news report about a couple years back, speaking of like random animal mutilations that no one can explain. Monroe County, Kentucky, a couple years back, like 3 or 4 miniature ponies completely slaughtered, and a dog, a rather big dog, you know, was pulled apparently by its back legs It had a collar around it, and basically they've referred it as basically shaped the dog. I think probably that's a light term. I would imagine more of a degloving. I would say it's probably, or maybe even decapitation. I don't know. I don't recall what it said in the full report on that one. But even the Monroe County Sheriff was very determined that it was a large predator. That they didn't even know what it could be. They were speculating large cat or something of that effect. But obviously, the dog was pulled from reverse out of its collar. And I don't know if you know, like a cat could tug and stuff, but I don't see a cat grabbing the back legs and continuing to pull. The amount of pressure it would take, the amount of force it would take to pull a dog's head through its collar and, in quotes, shaving the dog with the collar. Like, that's an immense amount of force from what I would think you'd put a collar on a dog. And we have, I don't know how many people in their area have these, but I know a lot of people in eastern Kentucky use what we call running lines. You tie a wire from one tree to another tree, and then basically you put like a C-clamp or something, or some kind of like hook on that, and connect the dog's chain to it. It's almost like a zip cord, where they can run a distance back and forth rather than just one small circle that can cover a large amount of ground and get out and about and kind of roam in a sense. But some people do that for dogs to make sure they stay active and whatnot. And I mean, that's cool and all. If it was something like that, or even if it wasn't, I just have a hunch that the owner of the dog that would put a collar around it would put the collar in such a way that it would secure its head, and it couldn't just like tug its own head through the collar and then just escape, thereby defeating the purpose of the collar. That's a long way around to say it, but I don't think the guy that done it, or the person that done it, was that dumb. So I would think the force required to pull a dog from reverse to do that, and then on top of that with the force mutilations and stuff, there's a lot of people that don't really know what the hell happened there. And that really branched me into the sci-fi. Animal X, to get back to it, really branched me into the sci-fi aspect of things, and especially like cryptozoology in general, and then just random happenings and stuff that, X thing happens, i.e. like a cattle mutilation, and that could be related to this other type of activity rather than being its own thing. And it wasn't a human. They weren't gunshots that killed these animals. They were like, their throats were bitten out, ripped out. That was really kind of fascinating to me. Interesting story that didn't happen too long ago if you wanted to look it up. Monroe County, Kentucky. Look into that. That's pretty cool. Number 2 for me was Monster Quest. That was at the same time I was watching stuff like In Search Of and kind of finding out more about it. Because that show pretty much predates, I don't know, almost every, like, some of those shows go way back, like in the 80s and stuff, and maybe probably even like late 70s maybe, I don't know, but it definitely in the 80s. And those are fascinating. But they cover in Monster Quest like several episodes on Bigfoot and Sasquatch in general. And again, I get it, doing stuff for entertainment's sake, but they also had to me, the good heart to go ahead and contact people. They did a lot of things with First Nation tribes, and people that were here long before we were, that were documenting this thing thousands of years ago, and suddenly we're like in the 1960s, like, oh yeah, it's real, totally real. Everybody else is like, we've known about this thing for like 3,000 years. Are you fucking stupid? So, but anywho, like Monster Quest did several episodes where they went in and talked to people like that, and I love hearing lore and backstories and just the the feeling that people have towards something. Like I said, people can see it as a spiritual animal or an interdimensional animal or anything like that. Like I'm not knocking anybody for having that belief, but I do enjoy hearing the story why people feel that way, because I feel that needs to be heard, and I don't feel that enough of these shows show the credibility to First Nations people that these tribes were here well before we were, and talking about large hairy men or wild men or Kushtaka or Skookum or like Ojibwe tribes and what do they call it? Damn, that eluded me. I just went blank. Anywho, you see where I'm getting at. And I don't edit these videos for one reason. One, I don't fucking know how to. I guess I'm not that smart. And two, I don't have an editor. And three, I don't have an illustrator. And four, when I do start doing these in my office, it's basically just going to be me, a camera, and a microphone, and it is what it is. I may post a fucking hour-long video. Who knows? It may be 40 minutes, 10 minutes. I don't know. It's not really. I don't really view it based off on time. It's just me putting my thoughts out there. So if you do like listening to them, cool. If you don't, I totally understand. I sound like a moron or a discount version of Seth Rogen. I don't know. I have a very bland voice. I would say that, so back on topic, like Monster Quest really got me interested in Sasquatch because they did so many episodes on it. And at the time, like, me with an old CRT television was like, dude, these graphics are pretty good. Now, yeah, kind of bogus, but whatever. They were trying. But I think they were trying to really get their point across, and I think it worked to an extent. Number 3 for me would probably be In Search Of. Just because it kind of falls along the lines of like Monster Quest and stuff, and I do love like following other paranormal things or cryptid things, like the Mothman of Point Pleasant. Monster Quest was also where I first learned about, because I'm obviously too young to know when that movie came out, but it did introduce me to The Legend of Boggy Creek, which is a fantastic movie as far as Sasquatch movies go, which was based on real events that had happened out in Fouke, Arkansas. There we go. Those are words. Fouke, Arkansas. Where a family in a cabin were completely terrorized by a Sasquatch, trying to get in and to their house, their cabin, and they had to defend themselves. And they made a movie on it. It was based off all the events that had happened to the family. Like In Search Of, same as like Monster Quest, and just you follow all these different cryptids and things like that, and I find it really interesting to hear the stories about the lore, the backstory, where this came from, what people feel in interviews and stuff like that, and hearing people's side of it, whether it be for TV sake or if it's a true situation. Number 4, I really enjoy Expedition Bigfoot. I know I rag on them, but I give them a lot of credit, because at least they stay in the same area for a long duration of time. And actually try to gather evidence on something rather than just staying one day out in the area. So, I mean, as far as that show goes, that was pretty cool. That happened a little bit later in life. That actually kind of started pulling me back into the idea that people may actually be trying to take this somewhat serious. And then probably, I would almost say, kind of last on the list, and I don't really know how to like categorize these. It's like, so when I was younger, it's not a show at this point, it's actually a book. There was a book that I had seen, and I don't remember the name of it. I don't remember anything about it other than one illustration that was in the book. Because when I was really young, and this is elementary school, I was probably like 4th or 5th grade, maybe even 3rd. I don't really know. But it was like I was in elementary school. I'm going to say not 5th grade and possibly not even 4th grade. I'm actually going to lean more towards 3rd. But there was a book that was there, and we were in the library, and I picked it up. I started looking at it, and this is probably where it all began, but I only have like one definitive memory about it, so I don't rank it so high, but it's there. I remember looking at a page, and I remember looking at an illustration of a Sasquatch. I didn't really understand what it was. It was almost like it was trying to refer to it as like a Yeti. Maybe poorly done book, now looking back on it. But anyway, what I figured out I was looking at was the story of Albert Ostman. And there was a Sasquatch that was abducting a man, and I was reading the story on it, how he stayed in the cave with it, and he stayed here, and all this stuff had happened to him and stuff, and I was like, are there things like this in our woods that I wasn't told about? Like, I was always told about, watch when you're hiking, there's bears out there, there's mountain lions or something like that, or, wolves. I don't know. Whatever parents tell kids to make sure they don't go undisclosed miles out in the middle of the wilderness with their best friend against their parents' wishes, seriously late at night, and get in trouble for it. I did that a lot as a kid. I got in a lot of trouble. Usually stayed in trouble for that same reason, because I just constantly ran the hills. But there was that book, and it was basically describing the Albert Ostman story, and I really got a grasp on it. But man, I found that thing so fascinating, because I was like, for the first time in my life, I was like, is there something my parents aren't telling me is out here in the woods? Like, do I need to know something? It was wild to me. That book, I swear, if I could ever find that kid's book, because it wasn't but super thin, and it just had different stories about different cryptids and stuff, or lores and legends. I don't really know what it was getting at. I remember it had like Loch Ness Monster in one section, and I was like, okay, I kind of heard about that on TV once when I was a kid, so no big deal. But then I had never heard about Bigfoot at that point, or Sasquatch. I hadn't heard any of it. And I was like, what in the hell is this? Why is this in our woods? Why is no one talking about this? Anywho, I always found that really fascinating in the back of my mind. And that kind of what drove me to kind of just look into stuff. And I always kind of, wonder. I guess the wonder was more fun than, the truth at the time. So, and ask anybody about it as a kid, like, oh, this is made up stories, blah, blah, blah. And then I come to be an adult, and I'm like, no, I'm a full-blown believer. Like, this shit's real. Fuck yeah, I guess if you don't want to believe it, you're going to be on the wrong side of the conversation when it comes out. But that's all right. But yeah, those are some stories of shows to me that honestly meant the world to me, getting me started into things. And then one even kind of pulling me back, because a lot of different things happened in my life, but I don't know, that kind of just brought me back to being me again and kind of feeling like myself. So I give a little bit of credit to Expedition Bigfoot for a little bit of trying. Even if it, you know, if I find out in the end it was if it truly was just for entertainment purposes. If they're the ones that find Bigfoot though, that'd be cool as shit. So I'm not going to discount anybody that goes out in the woods. It's just, I'm always going to say, be transparent about your entertainment. Don't lie to me. I have fragile feelings, and I will not be lied to. But, anywho, if you made it this far into the video, thank you so much for watching. It means the world to me. Somebody out there actually is like, this fucking idiot kind of makes a little bit of sense sometimes. I don't know. Maybe I don't. Like, I guess, if you liked the video. Don't like it if you don't like it. Subscribe if you wanted to. Probably the last video I'm going to make from my car. As far as like just ramblings. I was out on a trip today and did some searching and stuff. So just kind of piddling around. So I had time to talk. But I plan to make more, like going forward, these videos will be at my office and stuff. A little bit better of a setup. And maybe I'll learn how to edit. That'd be cool. Probably won't happen. Probably have to hire somebody who's smarter than me. But anywho, like, share, subscribe, whatever. Hit the thumbs up, hit the thumbs down. Tell me to fuck off in the comments. I don't care. Thank you so much for watching. It means the world to me. Take care. Be safe.